Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind. Like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something tidal, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blighted idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Of the free, and you'll know us by the trail of dead. It's just one more world war to complete the set. When you live by the pike, you die by the pith. You die wide-eyed, still pleading the fifth, or crying divine epithets and pathetic attempts at defense. All empathetic for those those on your side of the fence? Well, I'll gladly put you and your legacy into an alternate tense of faltering senses and altered events. Like hun, it ain't a hearse, it's a reaper's stretch. Ah, how sweet, she said. Bunch of hordes in the street like it's Evil Dead, where the thin blue line meets razor's edge, and where the corporate ladder ascends to a steel-toed boot that awaits on the ledge. You'll be licking it fresh at your boss's request till it stomps each finger and watches you fall to your death and drown in an ocean of debt. Gone with the fodder who gathered to honor the patient left, who purity tested themselves into sections step by step till the next election, when it's just one them and the sound of their well-read theorized breath. That's harm reduction for the lowly cost of you holding your nose and just openly buying the theft. Maybe that's all in the flick of the pen. Maybe we're all one unmarked van from a trip to the pen, being guarded by pigs who exist on a diet of dying breaths of much worthier men. Honey, heaven's expecting you. Just don't get too hung up on who they let in. Just look up at the shine of the pearly gates. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the paint. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the water, lead in the milk, lead in the honey, lead in the caustic embrace of the Heavenly Father. Lead is the flavor of passive perpetual slaughter. Lead is the taste of us led to the ledge by the lure of the legend of expert consensus, and then beckon to stretch it just one step farther. And I hope all the folks who were boastfully gloating and toasting themselves as the heroes of COVID for boosting their boosters and doing their part are now equally thrilled to be starstruck martyrs, all laid in a government grave with anonymous markers, like you're back from the carvers and off to the splicer. You're the very first wave to be slain in the war against Pfizer, that 100 years war against Pfizer. They are thinning the crowd that is striking right now to bleed adequate pay from those inhuman misers, who all sit in their office and designate coffins to people regarded as nothing but profit for Kaiser. Still the Dems want you nicer. Dems want you softer. Dems want you kinder. Yeah, they all want you graciously starving in silence. You will speak when you're spoken to. Rest of the time, you and all of us peasants are merely depressing statistics neglected in Congress's binders. All bled, bone dry, then fed to the grinder. Our headstones line each step as reminders. That's a lesson in object permanence learned in the furnace by workers consigned to the fire. Workers bled, bone dry, then fed by the fed to the grinder. Fed by the fed to the grinder. Now the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Now the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. And the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, bleeds you dry, then dines on the dead. The Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. The Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. The Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, So you let it in bed, you let it inside, you'll see it, it's fed. Never your mind, that it grinds your mind, that it grinds yourself, that it bleeds you dry, that it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led.
Have just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously, we're fucked. We are fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Welcome if you got them. But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
That's how I feel every Wednesday. Every Wednesday we should just scream into the ether. That's how I feel every day, Cap. That's my secret. It's INN News with me, Reef Breland, and this guy over here, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. Care Bear, how are you doing? Hopefully well.
Well, getting there because I'm almost on April break. So I'm going to be traveling. I'm not going to say where yet because I don't want none of y'all
umbrellas in the drinks. Feet in the Bahama sands.
Well, I'm not going there. Although I should.
Yeah.
One of these days.
Little corpse reviver. Could be good. But
besides that, not bad, I guess. For now. Considering what's happening in the world right now. But yeah, I really can't complain considering I have a job, I have a roof over my head, I'm able to pay my bills, I'm able to afford to go on vacation, which in of itself is, I feel kind of bad given tariffs and the future of that, just basically being like, should I even go anywhere? Yeah, kind of. Honestly, the fact that I'm feeling guilty to take time off and to get away and to rest sucks. Yeah, which kind of suggests how crap this country is, where you feel guilty. You can feel guilty for taking time off of work. You can feel guilty about not doing enough at work. You can feel guilty about going on vacation because you need a break. So, I mean, that's not to say people don't feel like that anyway, but I think especially in these times, it's very sad that I'm thinking about those things. So, but
you know,
it is what it is.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
Yeah. You may ask. We brought some stories. I do believe. So
yeah. So I think we might as well make this a series of, I know Indy is like, Israel sucks.
Yeah, the fuck Israel segment.
Yeah. So, or just put it on a playlist that says that, like, whatever. But, and this is a story that probably will be underreported even in independent media, but I felt was important.
Yep.
This is kind of an update somewhat to, well, more of a continuation of Israel killing journalists for bringing truth, and to otherwise what will be an unknown thing of what's the reality of what's happening in Gaza right now. So obviously, well, for those you may not know, there was another airstrike on Monday that killed, unalived, rather, YouTube.
We're fine. It's 15 minutes into the video. You know, they only checked the first 15, so we have Jesse before that. So if they didn't catch us for Jesse's lyrics, we should be all right. You know?
I guess.
Yeah.
But there was another airstrike where a journalist was unalived, and then several more were critically injured, including other bystanders. So we're going to talk about that first.
Yep.
Give you up to speed on that. And then later on, we're going to, well, I'm going to give my take, kind of, on the hands-off protests that were happening over the weekend. Spoiler, I did not go. I had no desire to go. In a way, I was told not to go by certain influencers that were encouraging Black people to stay out of it. But I honestly was not going to do this story because I just feel like we've ad nauseum I've spoken regarding how, you know, I have felt, you know, just giving protests, and how I feel it's not, I wouldn't say it's not important, but it doesn't give the same oomph as it used to compared to back in the day. But I do feel it is important to, now we're kind of in an age where people are, I think, more willing to protest now because of Trump. I think it is important to remind ourselves, but I think hopefully it will kind of bring a conversation rather as to what we should be doing now. At least having the discussion of, I think, just being honest with ourselves and just asking ourselves, do protests in a way that we might have seen in the past with our grandparents or even our parents' time, is it working in the same way?
Right.
And if not, what do we need to do differently in this age? So I think these are questions that hopefully, and I'm not going to have the answers tonight. I'm looking for the answers myself.
Yep.
But hopefully this can be the beginning of more conversations where instead of the first idea of let's get out on the streets, but rather what is something that we can do long-term that can build upon something more that will really be beneficial for us as American citizens and beyond. And what did you bring?
Well, in similar fashion, we talked about this a little bit Sunday night, I do believe, about the kill zone, quote unquote, that Israel has now enacted along the Gazan border. So we'll talk a bit about that. And I brought, we're going to out this guy right here as a liar of October 7th mass rape claims. So we're going to go into that, particularly through the eyes of Ali Abu Nima, and the Electronic Intifada, who's been doing incredible work. Go check them out. But yeah, that's what I brought. You know, bit of antiwar.com, some Brett Wilkins, heavy hitters all around. But you ready to get started?
I am ready.
Cool. Back one. Here you go. Oh.
So
you got it? Here you go.
Hold on. I just need to. There we go. All right. So as we say every week, most of you know, but for those of you who are new, possibly welcome to the show. But just for those of you who are new, YouTube hates us because we cover stories that are not favorable to their algorithm or their ad sense. So as a result, they have demonetized us. So obviously it costs money, believe it or not, to actually produce not just this show, but the other shows that you see on the network.
Money, please.
So the way that you can help out, if you care to, is through several ways. The most convenient way, probably for all of you, is through Ko-fi. If you scan the QR code, if you on your smartphone, you can scan it, as you can see there, or you can type in the link that you see at the bottom of your screen there. Or if you're in the YouTube chat, you type in !donate, all one word. The link will pop up. You can go to the Ko-fi link, and you can donate as much as you like. Anything as little, even as small as $1 will help. And to be completely transparent, any funds that we get will go to help pay for the things we use in order to produce these shows. And then any extra, we're hoping to support our colleagues in the network with new equipment so that they're able to produce content that is pleasing to your eyes and not, you know, to the detriment of the tech that they have. So just, again, being transparent as to where your money will be going to. So as we say every week, especially now, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of your communities before you give to us. We will feel very bad if you give to us and then your families or neighbors or yourself are struggling. But if you do happen to have a little extra cash and you want to send it our way, we would gladly appreciate it. Obviously, we know financially a lot of you can't do that. The best other way you can help us in getting the word out on the network is through word of mouth, which you guys have been rocking and rolling in. So like, share, subscribe, all the things the YouTubers say. And any donation you give at any point, you will be included on this wall of fame. We really appreciate you guys who have given to us over 3 years. Well, it's been 3 years already that we've been doing this show.
Yep.
Yeah, it's already been 3 years. So yeah, anyone who gives any amount, your name will end up on the wall. And we like to see this wall get bigger or make the font smaller so we can add more names. Also, if you do not want to give on Ko-fi, you can go to CashApp, PayPal, or if you want to go to Substack, and especially if you want to make a monthly donation, those links will be available as you see on your screen or in the description below. Whatever is easiest for you guys to give. So we thank you very much for your generous giving, whatever you're able to, or how you support us on the network through your liking and sharing our content. And thank you very much. We love you.
Yay, we did it.
Should we get started?
Sure. I should probably zoom out. There you go.
Yeah, so actually, while you do that, let me get my other screen up. So yeah. So first story of tonight, unfortunately, I do not want to talk about this because I feel like this is just rinse, lather, repeat of similar stories over and over again. But at the same time, I feel this story will go under the radar if we don't talk about it. And I think it is important to kind of share. And especially since, we've been told by different people, Hussam, I believe his name was, who we talked about last week, his final words were, as a journalist, his final words were, don't stop talking about Gaza, So we plan to do that here. And this is kind of more of a continuation of the sacrifice that journalists are making in light of trying to share truth of the reality of what's happening in Gaza right now. So as I said earlier tonight, a journalist was burned to a crisp. I hate saying it that way, but he was burned via a tent strike, as well as several other bystanders by the IDF on Monday. And so we do want to report on that, give you guys the know of that. But let's check out what The Guardian has to say about it, just to give you guys a little brief description, and then we'll get into more details of that. So, Reef, if you don't mind playing the short clip.
Nope.
So, those of you who are... So actually, let's go back. Those of you who are listening, an Israeli airstrike hit a tank in Khan Yunis that was reportedly being used as a base for a number of journalists.
Oh, yep.
الساعة 3 الفجر 3 الصبح زي
around 3 a.m. at dawn, we woke up to an explosion next to us. We all got out and saw out of our tents and saw a targeting of our journalist colleagues' tent. We will continue to deliver the message and convey the truth to the whole world. This is our humanitarian duty. Footage from after the strike shows the extent of the damage to the tent. According to reports, 1 journalist was killed and 9 others were wounded. Israel has regularly denied targeting journalists and say, oops, go back a sec.
Yep.
That went a little too fast.
No more?
Israel has regularly denied targeting journalists and says it takes steps to avoid hitting civilians.
Yeah, bullshit.
It resumed its operation in Gaza with a series of heavy airstrikes on the 18th of March and sent troops back in after a 2-month pause. So that's just a general description of what happened. So now let's get into more details. Thanks to friend of the show, Brett Wilkins. He'll be featured quite a bit tonight, I guess.
Yep.
So he reported via Common Dreams, how many more Israeli war crimes do we need to witness? Asked one Australian journalist. So Brett continues. Oops. Scores of Palestinians have been killed by Israel Defense Forces bombing of the Gaza Strip since Sunday, including numerous children as well as a journalist who was burned alive in a Monday strike targeting a tent full of sleeping journalists. The IDF strike on the journalist tent outside Nasir Hospital in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza at approximately 2 a.m. local time Monday killed Palestine Today reporter Himil al-Fawaki and another man identified as Yusuf al-Khazander, both of whom burned to death as helpless bystanders tried but weren't able to rescue them from the flames. So there's a video, I am not going to show it because reasons.
Yeah.
But you get the picture though. Saeed Mohammed Marandi tweeted, the harrowing footage shows Palestinian journalist Mahad Ahmad Mansour, engulfed in flames after a Zionist regime airstrike deliberately targeted journalist tents near Nasir Hospital in Khan Yunis. Is there any humanity left in the West? Hashtag Gaza Holocaust. So,
you got it?
Yep. Wasatem A. Dalul tweeted as well. Updates about journalist conditions after Israeli strike. Journalist Himil Fawaki was killed. Journalist Ahmad Mansour is suffering severe and critical burns and wounds. Hassan Slayeh is suffering from crushed fingers in his right hand and moderate head injuries. He is now in stable condition. All other journalists are okay. So we continue back to the article. The IDF said it carried out the strike in a bid to assassinate Elise, I guess, sorry, butchering the names, who was accused of being a member of Hamas Khan Yunis brigade posing as a journalist, partially because of the on-the-ground coverage of the October 7th, 2023 Hamas-led attack on Israel. Eslaya, who previously worked for the Associated Press and CNN, had repeatedly been threatened by Israel amid his tireless coverage of its annihilation of Gaza.
Yeah. Well, and we know that they've constantly called every journalist Hamas that they murdered. So it's just don't even listen to them at this point.
Right.
Like, you shouldn't even have to say those statements. That's, of course, they're going to say that. You know?
Right. So speaking of which, this is their response, the IDF's response on Twitter. The IDF and ISA struck the Hamas terrorist Hassan Abdel Fattah Mohammed Asil in the Khan Yunis area overnight. Asil, who operates under the guise of a journalist and owns a press company, is a terrorist operative in Hamas's Khan Yunis brigade. On October 7th, he infiltrated Israeli territory and participated in Hamas's murderous massacre. Asil documented and uploaded footage of looting, arson, and murder to social media. Prior to the strike, numerous steps were taken to mitigate harm to civilians, including the use of precise munitions, aerial surveillance, and additional intelligence. We will continue to operate to remove any threat to the state of Israel. And as she said,
you lying? Why you always lying?
Yep.
Oh my God.
The latest attack on journalists by Israel, which has killed well over 200 media professionals since October 2023, grew global condemnation and calls for U.S. corporate media to give more coverage to Israeli targeting of media professionals. This is not the first time Israel has targeted a tent sheltering journalists in Gaza. The international community's failure to act has allowed these attacks on the press to continue with impunity, undermining efforts to hold perpetrators accountable, said Sarah Kudar, the Middle East and North Africa director at the Community to Protect Journalists. CPJ calls on authorities to allow the injured, some of whom have sustained severe burns, to be evacuated immediately for treatment and to stop attacking Gaza's already devastated press corps. The Council on American Islamic Relations said in a statement, "We call for all U.S. media outlets to air the video of journalists burning alive in their media tent after Israel's government's bombing." They're not going to do that.
No.
And even just as an aside, I checked on mainstream media. The most I saw, if anyone reported on it at all, was around 30 seconds, if that.
Yeah.
So again, shout out to Brett for doing a little more extensive reporting on this story. But obviously mainstream media is not, well, they might, but they're not going to report it in the way that they probably should.
No.
So anyway, journalists must be the first in line to expose the intentional mass murder of fellow journalists, and the American people must be able to see the horror perpetrated in Gaza with American weapons and taxpayer dollars. Care added. We call on every state and national association of journalists to condemn the Israeli government's bombing of a media tent in Gaza and express solidarity with the Palestinian journalists facing targeted assassination for just doing their jobs. So this is from Antoinette Tafut. She is an Australian journalist. Oops. Did I skip? Yep. Who tweeted, "I feel physically ill. How are images of Palestinian journalists being burned alive not top story on every news site? This is after we watched the execution of paramedics. How many more Israeli war crimes do we need to witness? Or have we accepted our institutions and their so-called values are a lie?" Monday strikes following Sunday bombing that killed dozens of Palestinians, including strikes on the Al-Tufa neighborhood of Gaza City, that reportedly left 11 Palestinians, including 9 children, unalived and many others wounded. Other deadly IDF air and artillery strikes were also reported in cities including Khan Yunis and Deir al-Jabbar. These attacks included an airstrike on a community kitchen in Khan Yunis that killed 7 people, at least 3 of whom were reportedly children.
Yep.
So, again, I'm not going to show the video. This is a video. I'm not going to show it. Again, reasons.
Yeah, YouTube wouldn't like that very much.
But you get the point. That child is no longer with us. So I Am Palestine reported, a father bids farewell to his daughter who was unalived in the airstrike that targeted a group of children in Al-Tufa neighborhood in Gaza. You brought this for me, I believe.
Yep.
So this is from Hossam Shabbat. This is the guy who was killed.
Yes, I'd love to know who's
no, he was injured.
Running this account since then. Right. So, because he is no longer with us, Hossam Shabbat. Right. So, but
he was killed last week. Yes. He was killed last week.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
But tweeted, Al Jazeera cameraman Mahmoud Awad was injured as a result of the occupation's shelling of a journalist's tent near the Nasir medical complex. I think this is new because I didn't see this.
But I just feel like it shows exactly what happened, and people do need to see that a bit in a way that they can actually process, that isn't just a snuff film, So, yeah. I mean, I think they called it forced immolation. This particular one. So, but yeah, this is what I brought from Surrey Design 2. So,
we're going to listen to this guy. This is Alon Mizrahi. There's a clip to this, but I'll read what he said on Twitter first. No ambassador was called home from Tel Aviv. No condemnation was issued. No ruling was respected. No legal proceeding was allowed beyond the point of tokenistic international law. No reception was canceled. No contract was nulled. No arms shipment was called off. No cooperation was suspended. No critical piece was aired or printed. No UNSC resolution was allowed to pass. No General Assembly session was scheduled. No criminal was arrested. No ambassador was called home.
Yep.
So let's play what he said. Yes, please.
They have seen all of it. They have seen everything that we have seen. Every member of every parliament, every journalist, every international judge and institution and agency, every PM, every president, every king, every counselor, they have seen everything that we have seen. They have seen all of it. They have seen the dismembered children. They have seen them under the rubble, dead and sometimes alive. They have seen it with their own eyes. They have seen everything that we have seen. They have seen the children bleeding and dying on hospital floors. They have seen the parents holding their dead babies. They have seen families exterminated to the last member. They have seen the broken communities. They have seen the burned and bombed hospitals. They have seen UN shelters being destroyed. They have seen cemeteries being razed. They have seen all of it. They have seen people in tents being burned alive in their hundreds and thousands. They have seen everything that we have seen and brought us to the brink of not wanting to live anymore. Because we are normal and this is the normal reaction to what we see. And they have seen all of it with us. They are watching it with us. And they say nothing. They say nothing and they continue to stand with Israel. Every member of every parliament, from New Zealand to Australia to Canada to the US to Britain to Spain to Portugal to Belgium to Greece to Turkey to every Muslim and Arab country, they have seen everything that we have seen and they say nothing. They say nothing and they continue to support Israel. They continue to stand with the genocide. And we need to remember that because this tells us everything we need to know about how broken, about how irreparably, fundamentally broken our international political system is. How corrupt and broken this is. When the whole world and all the people with all the political power watch the same images and videos as we do and say nothing and do nothing and continue to support Israel. This should tell us everything we need to know about this world that we live in, this political system that we live in. This is the most shameful humanity has ever been, ever. There was never this kind of event, of catastrophe, being displayed to all of humanity and all the people with the power to stop it, condemn it, say nothing, and continue to support the genocide. This tells us all that we need to know.
Free, free Palestine!
I mean, good work from Elon there. I think that's how you pronounce that, right?
I think so, yeah.
Marazi? Marazi?
Mizrahi.
Mizrahi, that's it. Why do I always get that wrong? Names, I apologize. But yeah, agreed. So, and it feels like no one in power is willing to even get close to doing anything. So, but
shout out to Robert Imichet, who tweeted about this as well. Israel bombed a tent full of journalists at the Nasir hospital. The video showing one of the journalists slowly burning is horrific. Yes, Israel targeted journalists at a hospital, but don't expect Western condemnation or accurate reports about it on the spineless media.
Yep.
As we are seeing. So, Mawal Osman also tweeted, Israel burned civilians alive again. This time was a journalist. There is an HD video of his act of terrorism. Again, you will scroll past it. Again, the genocide continues and you all are complicit.
Yep.
So going back to Brett, just to give a little more context. So on Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in the United States from Hungary for talks with Trump and others on topics including Gaza, the hostages held by Hamas, Iran policy, and the 17% tariff Trump imposed on Israel last week, even though the country, which counts the U.S. as its biggest trade partner, lifted all levies on American imports in a bid to avert the move. So BB was in town, my town, on Monday.
Yep.
So, so obviously no one was going to say shit about any of this at all.
Yep.
Including Trump himself. But let's get into the weeds as to, I mean, we really don't want to hear what BB has to say, but we're going to be fair.
I won't be. He clearly wouldn't be fair to us.
Right. But let's see what he has to say regarding, well, anything.
Yeah.
You could play the whole
Netanyahu.
Early PM, President Netanyahu departed for his visit to Washington D.C. to meet with Trump on April 6th.
Yay!
Speaking about his visit, Netanyahu stated that tariffs and the Gaza situation are going to be the key agendas in the high-stakes meeting.
Okay.
I am finishing a very important visit in Hungary. Hungary is a very good friend of Israel that defends us in the European Union and in the United Nations, and moreover defends us in front of the corrupt International Criminal Court at The Hague that targets us all, including Israeli soldiers, commanders, and is trying to take away our right to defend ourselves. Hungary is the first country to resign from the ICC. It is a sign of more to come and a great help to Israel. We spoke about cooperating in regards to military armaments that we need in order to press on and achieve complete victory in the Seven Front Army. And of course, we also spoke about the Hungarian hostage, Omri Moran, and various important subjects to the state of Israel. I depart to the United States to meet with President Trump to discuss, of course, matters on the hostages and completing the victory in Gaza, and of course on the tariffs imposed on Israel as well. I hope I can help with that, of course. I can tell you that I am the first international leader that is meeting with Trump in regards to such an important issue to the Israeli economy. There is a long line of international leaders waiting to meet with Trump in regards to their economies. I think it shows the personal connection and the connection between our countries that is so essential in this time. I ask, of course, to send my personal reinforcement to the hostage families that have experienced once again the psychological propaganda. We think of their loved ones and we act as we speak for their release, and we will not let go, so help us God.
אני חושב שזה משקף את הקשר האישי המיוחד והקשר המיוחד בין ארצות הברית וישראל, שהוא כל כך חיוני בזמן הזה. אני מבקש כמובן למסור...
Fall down. Fall down the stairs. Fall down those stairs. Come on, fall down.
Hello?
Shit. Ugh.
So something you may not know, just to give you a little bit more context before we end this segment. So go back.
Yeah, I'm going.
A second.
I clicked wrong. My apologies.
The Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported that Netanyahu's aircraft deviated from the normal Budapest-Washington, D.C. route by about 250 miles to avoid the airspace of the Netherlands, Ireland, and Iceland, which officials fear could enforce arrest warrants issued last year by the ICC against the Prime Minister for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza, including using starvation as a weapon of war, which you talked about in one of your segments last week.
Yep.
Far-right Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and Trump have both rejected the warrants, and the latter has sanctioned the ICC. So
yes, we
basically
just dismiss the Hague. That's what we do.
Right.
That's a
so
smart
essentially
move.
Then Netanyahu had to take a longer flight to avoid getting into the countries that would arrest him on account of what he's doing at Gaza, that bastard. And just kind of goes to show the fecklessness of everyone else in the world who are not willing to follow suit. But yeah. Again, shout out to Brett. Thank you for his thank him for his reporting.
I think that ICJ stuff is still ongoing, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, but I haven't really heard anything.
No, I've heard Sam Husseini talk about it has major implications if it continues. And that like there's partially it puts the onus on other countries, I do believe, that are like complicit. And those countries could then get taken to court as well. You know, it's like precedent setting mainly, you know. So but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd like it to do something too. We've not seen it as far as anything that would do anything soon on that. So, but would be nice if, you know, karma was real and it came back to haunt people. That would be great. Or if ghosts were real, you have to imagine that like there'd be some people haunting all of Israel, right? You know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. You know, all we get is gaslight. So, well, I guess that's enough. But
look at the gaslight.
No, I will not. I don't know. Any closing thoughts for you? I mean, I feel like it's just another. Yay! More journalists are dead. Israel killed them. No consequences.
Yeah.
So you know, we'll at least have it down here for posterity. So, you know, when the next thing happens and they try to claim a new Holocaust has happened to them, you'll be like, well, before then, all this stuff was happening. So, you know, which we do frequently with October 7th. So we'll get into that later. But, yep. Terrible stuff, as always, from that region.
Right. But, I mean, honestly, well, this story was it wasn't really reported at all. So we decided, thank you for the lane, but we're demonetized because of it. So if you guys want to help support us in covering more stories like these, and especially to highlight independent journalists who are actually doing the work that are not corrupted by mainstream media, you can go to the QR code that you see on your screen, or you can type in the website that you see at the bottom of that screen there. Or if you in the YouTube chat and you type in !donate, all one word, the Ko-fi link will pop up. You can go to that link and give as much money as you're able. If you're don't want to do it through Ko-fi, we do have CashApp. We do have CashApp, PayPal, and Substack alternatives as well. Those links are in the description below if you want to check those out, if you want to donate that way as well. That being said, we're trying to work out, like, through any of those systems, if you give that, you'll get a cute little thing on screen. That only works with Ko-fi, so that's really the only benefit you get from Ko-fi. You see your donation on the screen. However, we don't expect everyone to give. We would like you to, but you understand that times are tough right now. So the best way you can help us, and really, truly, is to like, share, and subscribe to our content to help us fight the suppression that we see on YouTube. And make sure you leave a comment. We do read them. And help us get to free K. We're almost at 2,500, I believe. So let's try and shoot for, free K, maybe even over the summer.
It'd be good.
Maybe.
I'd take it.
Perhaps.
Mayhaps.
Help us out. Get us a little closer to 10. I'm not sure what that will do given that we're demonetized, but whatever. Yep. And thank you guys for watching.
Yay. We did it. Cool. To the chats, Boy Wonder. know there was Indian Spirit of the Age over on Rumble holding it down. If you're over on Rumble, make sure to hit those like buttons and leave us some messages in chat and some comments and all that good stuff. As you should on YouTube. Natalie Williams asks, could this world get any sadder? Careful what you wish for, Natalie. That's possible.
No, but it will.
Black Ace, peace and blessings from Buffalo, New York. Shout out Buffalo. You know, they got the wings, they got the garbage plates. Oh, that's more Rochester, I do believe. You know, I bet you can get some chopped cheeses in Buffalo if you're looking. What else is in Buffalo? No buffaloes anymore, you know? Ain't got that there. Desert Mantis, the economic system is the problem. It created a compatible political system. That is correct. Plenty of things and plenty of ways and plenty of money holders are right in the web. Sean the Accord Lord, not... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead with yours first.
Not going to lie, I love the fake TV setup y'all got going on. Reef, Chef's Kiss, Pinched Fingers. Yep. But...
Indian chat, basically they, meaning BB, were avoiding Irish airspace. The Dutch wouldn't give a fuck. Yeah. So...
Agreed. He also told people to go to Indie News Now. You can pay us there easily as well. So, plenty of ways to throw your cash at us if you so wish. Don't throw it hard. Be nice. You know, money hurts when thrown at people. But let's get to our next one. So, you hear about this, Collin? This new kill zone measures?
I did not. I only kind of looked at it briefly, you know, when I was finalizing some things this afternoon, but no.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into it. So, again, Brett Wilkins, and I know Indy read a bit of this the other day. So, Israel troops blow whistle on war crimes in Gaza, kill zone, quote unquote. And that's what they're calling it, these whistleblowers. So Brett writes, an Israeli human rights group on Monday published a report in which Israel Defense Force officers and soldiers who took part in the creation of a buffer zone along Gaza's border with Israel described alleged war crimes, including indiscriminate killing, as well as the wholesale deliberate destruction of civilian infrastructure in what multiple whistleblowers called a kill zone. The new report from Breaking the Silence details how Israel, which for decades has dubiously relied upon defensive buffer zones in territories it conquers or controls, decided on a policy of widespread deliberate destruction in order to create a security perimeter ranging between roughly half a mile and a mile in width on the Gaza side of the Israeli-Palestinian border. To create this area, Israel launched a major military engineering operation that, by means of wholesale destruction, entirely reshaped about 16% of the Gaza Strip, an area previously home to some 35% of Gaza's agricultural land. The report states the perimeter extends from the coast in the north to the Egyptian border in the south, all within the territory of the Gaza Strip and outside of Israel's internationally recognized borders. So... this is from Breaking the Silence, The Perimeter, a new collection of testimonies from soldiers who fought in Gaza. It chronicles the systematic annihilation and expropriation of entire villages and agricultural zones while creating the new Gaza buffer zone. So they have this video, and this is of Google Maps, November 2023, right? So that's what this area looked like. And then in 24, that's what it looked like. So is that not Hiroshima level destruction to you? Looks like it to me. I don't know about scale, but definitely up there. So This Kurza, right? We've talked about that place previously before. But the mission to give soldiers in the field, as revealed in their testimonies, was to create an empty, completely flat expanse about 1 kilometer wide along the Gaza side of the border fence. The publication continues, this space was to have no crops, structures, or people. Almost every object, infrastructure, installation, and structure within the perimeter was demolished. Palestinians were denied entry into the area altogether, a ban which was enforced using live fire, including machine gun fire and tank shells. In this way, the military created a death zone of enormous proportions. The report adds places where people had lived, farmed, and established industry were transformed into a vast wasteland, a strip of land eradicated in its entirety. So, the testimonies demonstrate that soldiers were given orders to deliberately, methodically, and systematically annihilate whatever was within the designated perimeter, including entire residential neighborhoods, public buildings, educational institutions, mosques, cemeteries, with very few exceptions. Industrial zones and agricultural areas, which serve the entire population of Gaza, were laid to waste, regardless of whether those areas had any connection whatsoever to the fighting. And I do believe the reason why all those agricultural things are right along that border fence is because they fucked up all the farmland elsewhere, right? Just the actual dirt. So I think you've talked about that before.
Yes.
But Palestinians who dared enter the perimeter, even accidentally, were also targeted, including civilian men, women, children, and elders. The officers and soldiers interviewed by BTS struggled to explain whether non-combatants were informed of the no-go zone's limits, while one saying civilians knew to stay away when they saw that enough people died or got injured, crossing the unmarked boundary. So, people who entered the perimeter out of sheer desperation were targeted. Israel's blockade of Gaza has fueled widespread and sometimes deadly starvation. I would argue all-time deadly starvation. And Palestinians entered the kill zone to pick up hubaiza, a nutritious wild plant after the area's farmland was raised. The IDF really is fulfilling the public's wishes, which state there are no innocents in Gaza, will show them. One reserve warrant officer explained. People were incriminated for having bags in their hands. Guys showed up with a bag, incriminated, terrorist. I believe they came to pick up hubaiza, but boom, tank shells were fired at him from half a mile away. In a separate interview with The Guardian, the same officer said that at first his attitude toward invading Gaza was, I went there because they killed us, and now we're going to kill them. And I found out that we're not only killing them, we're killing their wives, their children, their cats, their dogs. They added, we're destroying their houses and pissing on their graves. This is Israelis saying this. So... Another IDF reservist officer told BTS that he was briefed that there is no civilian population in the area, where Palestinians are terrorists, all of them. Asked what the area looked like after the IDF clearing operation, the officer replied, Hiroshima. A captain in an armored division of the IDF Reserve said the borderline is a kill zone where there are no clear rules of engagement or proper combat procedure. Anyone who crosses a certain line that we have defined is considered a threat and is sentenced to death, the captain added. The BTS report follows an investigation published last December by Haaretz, Israel's oldest newspaper, in which IDF soldiers and veterans described a kill zone in the Netzarim corridor in the heart of Gaza, where troops were ordered to shoot anyone who enters. The forces in the field call it the line of dead bodies, one commander said. After shooting, bodies are not collected, attracting packs of dogs who come to eat them. In Gaza, people know that wherever you see these dogs, that's where you must not go. The new report comes as Israeli forces are carrying out an ethnic cleansing campaign in which hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are being forcibly expelled from areas of Gaza, including the south and an expanded border perimeter. The AP reported Monday that Israel now controls more than 50% of the territory and is squeezing Palestinians into shrinking wedges of land. And that's the AP. I bet they're being fucking heavily conservative on this.
Sure.
So, but Israeli troops are moving to seize large tracts of the Strip for a so-called security zone and Jewish recolonization. Member of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's far-right government, who said the campaign is being coordinated with the administration of Trump, who in February said the United States would take over Gaza, remove all of the Palestinians, and transform the Mediterranean enclave into the, quote, Riviera of the Middle East. So this is what they're saying. This is again from the AP, which of course this is why they have shit like this. Communities attacked by Hamas, right? You know, so fucking assholes. But in the orange, you'll see the buffer zone as of January 2025. And this yellow is the expanded. So you can see how much land they're continuing to take, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's that Netzarim corridor, right? And the Philadelphia corridor is over here, right? And this Marag corridor. So, you know, I know me and you have talked about the Ben Gurion as well. I bet you these corridors are probably close to where they imagine putting one of those, if they are to put one. So I could be wrong, but I feel like right through Gaza is where they want to put that. So one of these could definitely fulfill that. So, and this is, you know, goes back to those maps we've all brought before of just the land grab that Israel has done since 1948, correct? So
correct.
This is the continuation of that. I guarantee you there's going to be settlements pushed into this and all that jazz. So, but on Monday, Netanyahu arrived in D.C. from Hungary for talks with Trump and other U.S. officials regarding topics including Gaza ceasefire, which they have no intention of, release of the remaining hostages held by Hamas, which they don't give a fuck about, Iran policy, and tariffs, which they don't want them to have nukes because, God forbid, they have a way to defend themselves from the Samson option. But Netanyahu is a fugitive from the ICC, which last year issued arrest warrants for him and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. I would argue not alleged anymore, including extermination and using starvation as a weapon of war, which again, not alleged. They've proven to do so. Israel is also facing a genocide case at the ICJ for its conduct in a war that has left more than 180,000 Palestinians dead, maimed, or missing in Gaza, and almost all of the Strip's more than 2 million people forcibly displaced, often multiple times. Again, all those are direct war crimes against the Geneva Code. So Israel's bombing and invasion of Gaza continued on Monday, an early morning IDF strike on a tent where numerous journalists were sleeping outside Nasser Hospital in the southern city of Khan Yunis killed Palestinian Today reporter Hilmi al-Fakawi and another man who were burned alive as helpless witnesses were unable to douse the flames or rescue victims. 9 others were reportedly wounded in the attack, which the IDF said targeted a Hamas member. More than 230 journalists have been killed by Israeli bombs and bullets since October 2023. All of them accused being Hamas, so we can just quit with that bullshit. So anyway, you might think that these are new. They are not new, right? Here's Eva Karine Bartlett, right? April 8th is when I posted this, right? She posting this April 2nd of 2024, right? Example of Israeli soldiers implementing Israel's kill zone procedures, right? So here's that example. In 2009, in southeast Gaza, Palestinian farmland, 500 meters from fence imprisoning Gaza. Does that sound familiar? We just read this, correct? Yep. Pleading with a Zionist terrorist to not shoot unarmed Palestinian civilians is pointless. I know that now. back in 2009 to 2013, Eva was naive enough to think that if they knew they were being recorded, they wouldn't. Well, she recorded them, and we're going to watch that. So it is slightly graphic, so I will warn people to come back in a minute and 23 seconds. So...
Shit. Somebody got injured, Andrew.
Why are you shooting? Soldiers, we have no weapons. Please do not shoot.
You did. You did.
Oh.
Yep. So that was Eva back in 2009. In the region, as she tends to be. Thoughts so far? Yep. I know, dude. It's fucking bullshit. Like, you know, and it just goes to show none of this is new with Israel. They just continue to ramp this up and take more and more land. So, and then they have...
it just sucks. I'm trying to find different ways to say the same thing.
Same thing.
And over and over again. I can't.
Yep. Anyway, and then the gall to, you know, to blame this on Hamas, you know, is just fucking rich at this point, because guess what? Israel official, Palestinians will be removed from Gaza after Hamas eliminated. So how is that? First of all, they're all terrorists apparently. So after they're all eliminated, you'll remove the ones that you already eliminated? Or, like, I think your math is not adding up anywhere. Right. So on top of, clearly you do not care about any Palestinians because you want them gone after Hamas is gone. So, yeah. So Kyle Anzalone over at Anti-War writes, an Israeli official made it clear that Tel Aviv plans to expel the Palestinians from Gaza after the hostages are freed and Hamas is eliminated. So again, don't even care about those hostages either. So throughout the conflict, the prime minister publicly claimed the goals of military operations in Gaza were returning Israeli captives and removing Hamas from power. According to Haaretz, a senior Israeli official who was traveling with Benjamin Netanyahu explained, what we would like to see is that we rescue the hostages, eliminate Hamas, and that there is a large-scale opportunity for voluntary migration. How the fuck is voluntary when it's by gunpoint, huh? How the fuck? You want me to point guns at you and see if you do things voluntarily? You want that? Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, sorry. Israeli officials have used the phrase voluntary migration to describe Tel Aviv's process of removing all Palestinians from Gaza. Yeah, that's called a war crime. After President Donald Trump returned to office, he declared that all Palestinians should be removed from Gaza and resettled in other countries. Since October 7th, Prime Minister Netanyahu said his war aims were only to eliminate Hamas and return the hostages, denying that Israel's objective was genocide. On Thursday, The Times of Israel reported that Hamas again offered to release all captives in exchange for a permanent ceasefire. The outlet explained that Tel Aviv has a long-standing rejection to this type of deal. The senior official speaking with Haaretz said that at this point, Israel is focused on applying military pressure on Hamas, who says the enemy won't break. Some captors may want to escape, allowing us to extract people, they said. Over the past 18 months, the vast majority of the living Israelis that were freed were released by Hamas during the 2 ceasefire periods. Scores of hostages have died in Gaza, including some killed by Israeli bombs and soldiers. When the senior official was asked if Tel Aviv was concerned that resuming the fighting in Gaza will lead to the deaths of more captives, they explained, "Does not matter if they die. It does. It's terrible. But they are suffering. So if they die from Israel about their own hostages."
Right.
So, anyway, the official said that Tel Aviv was very serious about implementing Trump's plan. Last month, Netanyahu ordered the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad to find countries to take in Gazans once they are expelled from Israel. In recent weeks, a number of countries have been approached by Washington or Tel Aviv about resettling Palestinians. So far, all those nations have rejected the proposal or denied that an offer was made. The senior official said some of the countries were receptive but looking for something in return. They want something in return, not necessarily money, but also something strategic, they explained. So, closing thoughts, Care Bear? Anything?
Again, it's the idea of us repeating the same thing all the time and trying to say something different at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's made clear. Well, it's been clear in the year plus that we've reported on all of this. Israel doesn't give a damn about the hostages. They would rather kill them, than to take ownership over them. All Palestinians are Hamas, according to them. So they're not looking to, remove them forcibly. They're trying to kill them all.
Yes.
So really, that's the point. Is
whatever to get them off the land. Right. So yeah. So it's again, rinse, lava, repeat every week. Yep.
Which is why I'm getting sick and tired of talking about Israel.
Yep.
So
if only tragedy happened in other parts of the world, we would cover that. Jesus Christ. I'd love to talk about stuff that isn't tragedy. That'd be fantastic. But seeing as how that's not a thing right now. But talking about those tragedies is certainly why YouTube has decided to demonetize our channel. So if you would like to get around that system and still support us, you can scan that QR code on your screen. Go to code-fee.com/indienewsnetwork, or links are in the description as well. We appreciate any monetary stuff you can throw our way. We appreciate it. And if, you can't give monetarily or reverse psychology works on you, don't subscribe, don't share the video. Definitely don't leave a comment. If you don't want to be told what to do, don't do any of those things. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Well, what do you got, Care Bear? Anything?
I did see some. Go back up.
Cool. Got some people over on the Rumble asking what in the Sam Hill is going on here. What in the Sam Hill? Birdhouse Blues saying long time no see, Reef and Collin. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. What you got over on the YouTube?
This is so enraging. Also, I would have blocked the BS the AP propagandized.
Yep. It's hard to do that when they put it right on the map, dog. But you knew that.
All right. Natalie Williams, shout out to you. Congratulations, Zion. You are the new
Nazis. Yeah, I'll say it. I mean, they are.
Who are these people?
So, hey, $10 from Sean saying thank you both. We appreciate it so much. You know? So, you know.
Tick, tack, Sean, can I just call you Moneybag Sean from now on? Because every week, without fail, you've given to us. And
I was thinking
really
about
appreciate you.
maybe for top supporters, we add something to the soundboard for them, you know?
Yeah.
That'd be a good,
I think
good
that'll
thing.
be-
I'll find a Honda Accord sound bite for Sean. You know?
Or Sean, you can tell Reef what sound clip you want.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
So custom. So let us know in the chat what you want, and we'll make that happen for you. But yeah, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you. You've gone above and beyond what you should, and yeah,
Yay.
love you, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. But Sean loves we just fucking lost the stream. Yeah, but I can't do that. That people will think we ended the stream. Can't do that one. What else we got? Kamishwari Kate showed up in the chat. Appreciate you. We don't mind if you're late, as long as you're here. You know, that's all that counts. Popeye the Sailor saying they always were. Pretty much. They'll never admit it, though, says Natalie Williams. What is an activist arborist? Do they give trees new wave haircuts? There is a thing called guerrilla grafting, where activists graft fruiting trees onto non-fruiting trees to feed the homeless. Not giving you any ideas, though. Your city may not like that, but you didn't hear from me. I don't know what they're talking about, officer. Anyway, you ready for our next one?
Yeah.
Cool.
And honestly, this gives me no pleasure to talk about this at all. I didn't want to talk about this at all, but I think there was some information. I will admit, I came in with a bias because I was just kind of like, this is just another one of these major performative rallies / protests that we saw in the first wave of Trump back in 2017 and following.
And if it walks like a duck.
Right. So I had no interest. I didn't care about it. But there was, since the weekend, and just seeing some things and talking to some people that we know regarding this, not to say I've changed my view on it. I still feel a way about it, and I'll get into that later. But I think there's definitely some more implications to this that I'm sure other commentators have reported on, but I'm going to say kind of my take on a lot of it. So yeah, over the weekend, we had the hands-off marches / rallies / protests that apparently, Reef, were in pretty much every major city in the country, including overseas. Sounds something?
Yep.
Actually, to me, that sounds like a couple of things that have occurred within the last 5 years.
Yep.
But let's see what mainstream media. Now, key point: mainstream media reported on this.
Oh, of course they did.
So
only particular parts of it, I'm sure. You know,
right? Sky News, which is Australian-based, reported on this. So let's see what mainstream media had to say about these protests over the weekend.
Cool. Un momento. Here.
In the shadow of the Washington Monument, a symbol of America's democracy, they gathered in protest against the president.
Stand tall in every state. Stand tall in truth. Stand tall.
His trade war was the final straw for these people. They say he's targeting working Americans, migrants, and community groups.
We've seen that guy before.
what is happening in our government so appalling.
You recognize that guy?
His trade war was the final straw for these people. They say he's targeting working Americans, migrants, and community groups.
Yeah.
I find
He's
what is
part
happening
of, what is that? The Poor People's
Campaign.
Yeah.
in our government so appalling and so immoral. I mean, that's really why I feel like I need to be here.
I finally reached a breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore. Actually, I probably win the long distance award. I came here from Hawaii.
Look at our country. It's
Hawaii?
embarrassing. Like,
How the
genuinely
fuck you
embarrassing
get-
to be like
what?
an American right now.
There wasn't protests in
There were
Hawaii
protests
you could
in
go
1,000
to?
cities across all 50 states.
Right.
We shall overcome.
A nationwide act of defiance that can't have gone unnoticed. But Donald Trump appeared focused on other things, reading headlines about China's tariffs on his way to the golf course.
These people are pushing back against what they describe as the most brazen power grab in history. But President Trump's press secretary says anyone who thinks he's going to be deterred by protests like these is living under a rock.
Opposition is growing, though, many still refusing to be silenced.
We have to speak out, we have to act, we have to do something, because this is not America.
What do you say to people who would argue that the
Baby,
people
you're
have
not
already
supposed to
spoken
be
in
there.
that President Trump won the election?
Some people have spoken, and then some people have not. And those of us that have not, we need to speak now.
But will the president listen? He's pressing on with his agenda, regardless of the number, joining the march against him.
Our
David
bodies,
Blevins,
our choice.
Sky News.
She must be for bodily autonomy. You know?
Well, there's a reason why I said, baby, you're not supposed to be there. I'll get into why later.
Well, it's also just all this focus on figureheads. Trump, Elon, all that shit. Nothing of actual substance. I say that. I'm sure some, I assume, are bringing things of substance, which I did see, but, you know, gets lost in the sauce, don't it?
Right. We've only covered stuff from Vogue once.
Okay.
I believe. At least once. On this show in the 3 years that we've been on. So that should tell you something. The fact that a fashion magazine is even reporting on this. That's why I pulled it. Like, I could have pulled it from anywhere. But the fact that Vogue reported on this, that should be sent off red flags to everybody in the chat. Because why would a fashion magazine report on protests?
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
Like,
right. So just to kind of give you a clue, I mean, you guys are smart. So, but that being said, Anna Capola reported in Vogue, hands off, millions of anti-Trump protesters take to U.S. streets. Across the streets in all 50 states on Saturday, April 5th, protesters called for an end to President Donald Trump's hostile takeover and his authoritative overreach and billionaire-backed agenda under the banner of the Hands Off movement. More than 150 progressive groups were involved in organizing the 1,400-odd demonstrations. They included progressive public policy advocate groups like Move On and Indivisible, and others that work across civil rights, women's rights, veteran support, labor, climate change, and LGBTQ plus advocacy.
There it goes.
Per a public statement, demands from Hands Off include an end to the billionaire takeover and rampant corruption of the Trump administration, an end to slashing federal funds for Medicaid, Social Security, and other programs working people rely on, and an end to an attack on immigrants, trans people, and other communities. Protests also focused on Musk's illegal power grab, with a group stating that Trump, Musk, and congressional Republicans are gutting services, raising prices, and racing towards slashing Medicaid, Social Security, and more. In New York, thousands marched from Bryant Park to Madison Square Park. In Washington, D.C., tens of thousands of protesters gathered at the National Mall, and large crowds in Hollywood, Florida, close to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, turned out for the demonstration. One protest took place at a Tesla dealership in Fort Lauderdale. There were also international solidarity protests taking place in Paris and London, among other European cities. At a group's largest protest in D.C., Democratic representatives took turns to speak to the crowd, including Maryland's Jamie Raskin, who described the president as having the politics of Mussolini and the economics of Herbert Hoover. Minnesota Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar and Maxwell Frost, that punk, of Florida also spoke, asking people to take part in the action, donate to mutual aid funds, put pressure on their elected representatives, I hope that includes them, and stay focused on the demands. Across the demonstrations, chants of "Hey ho, Trump's gotta go" and "Power to the people" circulated. Placards read "Hands off education," "F Musk," and "Resist, resist." So this was the pomp and circumstance that happened over the weekend, and I felt a way. And I showed this on Twitter.
No point in saying
Case
good
in
morning.
point. I'm sorry, but I protested for Medicare for All back in 2021. There were protests in over 50 cities, and none of them got any national coverage. At best, local, but not national. Now, because Cheetah Man is in office, everyone and their mother wants to protest now, and these protests get national coverage. This is why I don't take these protests seriously anymore. I understand the desire to protest Trump, but people are acting like Biden was perfect during his administration, that he wasn't worth protesting against, Gaza and student loan debt aside. This is the kind of energy that should be happening constantly, regardless of who is president. But I guess it is easier and more obvious when a Republican is in power. So those were my thoughts that I shared over the weekend. And apparently this tweet, for me, did very well. And a lot of you all agreed with me. So Indy, shout out to you, tweeted back, responded, "La Pussy Hat wearing brunch libs decided it was 8 years since their last parade yelling about Trump that accomplished nothing. Why not do it again?" Moonlight Butter doesn't, I'm not sure who this is in the kind of tweet, but they said, "I got the same people who used to say we were overreacting when we said we were on the brink of World War III under Biden. Now they want to yell at MFers for not joining their feel-good parades. The same parades that will disappear once again.
That's my
Trump
problem.
Is gone."
Who are these people?
Oh, Kate.
I would love to hear any of Bella Ciao for a sound drop. I like the first 7-11 seconds of this mix from Bandcamp. I'll take a look. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate.
Yep.
So at the _Z said, "Modern protests are performative. It's a way for the participants to feel like they're involved in a self-congratulatory way. No protest movement has been successful in my lifetime. To that end, name a modern protest movement that enunciates clear demands. It's theater." Now, to be fair, there were demands, but what will happen if those demands were not met? I didn't necessarily. You can tell me in the chat if you heard anything of the like, because again, I was tuned out of this whole thing. But my guess is it was just like, we have to stop Trump. We need to defend insert issue or cultural issue here.
Right.
And that was more or less what I guess was probably what was spoken a lot of over the weekend.
Yeah.
I got a few more.
Okay.
A couple more. Actually, wait. Did I? Yeah. So again, I got tuned out of it. This was kind of what I was seeing also initially online. Black Americans did not attend the April 5th protests around the country, at least not the 80% men or 92% women who did what was necessary November 5th, 2024. That was election day. So this was an implication of people needed to vote for Kamala Harris. Thanks to all who stood up in America. Assignment understood. So I was seeing quite a few of these.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, okay, I don't care, more so.
Sure.
Because it shouldn't, like, didn't care about Kamala. We all know that. But as we got into later in the weekend, there actually, I think a lot of these were bots, and a lot of these were more of the influencers who are trying to use like the Kamala tactic, and probably K-Hive as well, to kind of justify Black people not being at these events. But shout out to DJ Joe Nice. When I spoke, actually, wait. I might mix these up a little bit, but that's okay. I think I mixed some slides around, but I'll get back to this in a second. I'll come back to that. But Randall Calrissian the second said,
"Yes,
when Nancy Pelosi shows up to your protest, you know it's fake."
Yeah.
Case in point. Power to the People tweeted, when a corrupt corporate politician like Nancy Pelosi shows up to your rallies, it means you are not resisting anything except the reality that both parties serve the oligarchy and the new system is needed. Spartacus himself,
Who are these people?
Cory Booker, attended a rally, I guess, in Montclair, New Jersey, close to my hometown.
Yeah.
Like what town north from where I used to live. Senator Cory Booker joins a hands-off protest in Montclair, New Jersey, with a message for us all. We achieved every great thing in this country because every citizen stood up and said enough is enough. It's time to turn our anger into action, our worry into work. It's time to turn our fear into light.
Bro, homie, you're the one that's supposed to be doing the work, not the rest of them.
Right.
They're here to tell you to do the fucking work, and you aren't, and you haven't, and you should be fucking ousted.
Belcrum Gill tweeted, on the historical significance of Cory Booker's speech, he stood for 25 hours. That was the huge thing that people were talking about last week. He then voted against a resolution that would harm arms sales to Israel. He voted to continue sending Israel arms that were slaughtering Palestinian children. Booker stands for genocide, nothing more. So, yeah. So
you got no friends in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. So this was kind of bullshit. So let me go back because I messed up the slides. So I want to go back to this tweet. As I said, so I was seeing a lot of this over the weekend. So I said had nothing to do with it. I saw this tweet in regards to Kamala of basically being like, Black people didn't need to be at this event because we allegedly because we did the work of voting for Kamala and we still got Trump, so we should have nothing to do with it. So that's what I was seeing a lot of, at least from the bots and the K-Hive and the black influencers online. But then talking to DJ Joe Nice, I saw he kind of, and I'll get to his tweet a little later. He kind of told me another angle that I wasn't seeing at the time. But then, so I did a little digging, and this is what I pulled up. This is from TikTok, either TikTok or Instagram, I believe. Yeah, TikTok. So let's see what this Black Queen has to say regarding these protests.
Nubian Queen.
April 5th is coming. And before anybody starts romanticizing protest, let me just say it plain as day. No confusion. We are not going out there. Not this time. We are not going out there. A whole lot of people are planning to hit the streets, right? I know y'all have heard the buzz. Chants, signs, cameras, emotions are going to be high. I get it. Hell, I've been out there before. But the last time we marched, what happened? They tear gassed us, shoved elders to the ground, committed vandalism, and then blamed us. They shot rubber bullets at kids, and then had the nerve to call us violent. We showed up with our voices. They showed up with riot gear. We screamed, don't shoot, and they loaded that clip anyway. And let's be clear, this administration, they've let us know in no uncertain terms. Black people in the street equals threat. They're looking for a reason to vilify us. They're waiting for a headline to twist. They're hoping for a camera angle that's going to justify their brutality. And what do we get in return? A quote tweet, a statement, maybe a mural? But no safety, no justice, no peace. So no, we're not marching this time. We're not going to give them the photo op that they so desperately want. We're not playing into that cycle. We're not going to give them the excuse that they're so desperate for. We're protecting our people. We're staying home. We're building offline. We're organizing smarter. Because we don't need to be in the streets to prove that our rage is real. So let them march. Let them bait. Let them spin the same tired narratives. But don't let them turn your blackness into a threat on live TV. April 5th, we sit back. We step back. We stay safe. Because survival is resistance too.
Okay.
Yeah. So these were kind of some of the things that were kind of popping off from Black people not attending, which as a person who was at the George Floyd protest and quite a few protests since, I totally get that sentiment in terms of Black people have been at these marches forever, and especially under the last administration, Trump's first, not so much Biden's, but even there, we were kind of vilified in terms of, Black people are there, or not even Black people, like any melanin, any multicultural thing, it was a problem. So that was a lot of what I was kind of seeing bubble up online as well. And just to show that it wasn't Black people who kind of made that connection, or at least saying it, there were some white people who kind of got the idea of what Black people were doing and how significant it was of us not being there. So if you want to pull up this next slide, because this is something that DJ Joe Nice mentioned to me, what he saw in North Carolina, where he's from, that this white lady was able to share on TikTok as well. So go ahead.
See, I didn't know that this was well understood assignment that Black people weren't going to show up to these march to the protest. I didn't know till I got there, and I was like, why is it just white people? Where are all the Black and brown people? Like, I don't get it. Like, why are we fighting for them and they're not here? Hello. I get it now. Because there was no fucking soldiers standing ready. No police on. I'm like, why? Where are all the police? Where are all the, like, because everyone's like, be safe. I'm like, well, fine. Whatever. Like, I don't get it. Like, it was all old white people. And those old white people were all safe because the Black people weren't there. Because the Black people are the reason they show up, the police and the martial law people try to come in the first place. It's their racist hatred of Black and brown people that makes protesting dangerous. But across every state, there was no danger because there was no police there policing. And why weren't they policing? Because there were no Black people. How sick and sad is that of a statement, white people? That you're just safe because they're not there? Because the people that'll create the violence are the ones that are supposed to be protecting the peace? It's really not about that. It's really because they weren't there that you were safe. And that statement is scary because the violence and the attacks and the injustices that are happening in every state are to Black and brown people by the people in power. So I get it now. I get it. You shouldn't be there because you're going to be not safe.
Well, I disagree slightly. I think it's less about... Because you see this with... They've sent police forces into white college campuses here recently. They've done that to, Kent State classically had some issues. There's the Black and brown population is kept from those, places of high esteem because of the institutional racism. But, I don't know if having Black people at your protest in and of itself makes it... It's like what they're worried about is will it push back against power effectively. And when it does, that's when the police show up. You know?
Right.
Like, even if it's could barely touch power at all, that's when they show up. So,
well, I think it's because, and again, if we want to use George Floyd as an example,
yeah,
like because
Standing Rock, like
right, because the difference was it was multicultural,
yeah,
multiracial, generational.
Yeah.
Like those are the types. Those like when you're building against
poor and working class
the establishment, truly,
right?
Then that's a problem.
Yeah.
But if it's like a generally, and I don't want to necessarily make the assumption, I'm not saying that all white people are privileged.
Yes.
But collectively, white people have certain privileges that are not necessarily afforded to everybody else. So if you get a group of white people together, and even Indy was kind of telling me this over the weekend, he's like, "What did you notice?" It was basically all white old people who were attending these protests.
Yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily say all of that, but based on the reports I was seeing, it was definitely not a lot of.
Is what I would call that. You know,
right? It was more or less the white. I wouldn't say elite, but the comfortable people that we've been screaming at to come
level
to these protests, right? Surface level. So it's the people that can afford to go home. Yeah, it might sting a bit that they may not, they have to pay for insurance, that they might have to pay a little bit more for the products that they need in their homes or the things that they need every single day, but they'll be able to somewhat manage. Those are the people that we were screaming at for the last 4 years to be like, we need your voices because you actually have some influence in terms of your position that collectively you can actually speak up against the injustices that we do see and witness to. But the last 4 years, as people say, they were out to brunch because they were comfortable. And now that they're experiencing a little bit of discomfort,
right,
or more likely that they just don't like the boogeyman basically saying mean stuff, that's when they now decide, oh, it's time to come out of their hibernation.
The fact that they were comfortable under previous administrations when you weren't, I wasn't, other people weren't, like, you know, it just shows their status. And a guy could travel from Hawaii to DC. How much that cost? You know, which that's in and of itself, you know, they plant people and all sorts of shit with this kind of stuff, you know, and they do that on both sides. So, but you got this, you brought this.
Right. So this was me, I believe on Sunday after just seeing a lot of this stuff. So it seems that the hands off protests were mostly attended by white people, and surprise, surprise, there were no cops in riot gear, tear gas, and the like. It was mostly peaceful. But best believe that if drops of melanin were added, it would have been a different story. Again, another tweet that did very well. Wait. Oh, that's right. Shout out to DJ No Nice. He actually sent me an Instagram voice message. So I'm glad once we figure out how to pull that into these slides, we'll do, because I think hearing it from him, I think is a lot more powerful than him writing it. But what he wrote here is basically what he told me in that voice message. But he said to me and say to y'all, I drove past the protest in Capitol Hill. It was mostly suburban wine moms driving range dads and 401k boomers wearing Birkenstocks with black socks. Their sign said nothing about Gaza, Congo, Medicare for all, or reparations. None of them were protesting 5 summers ago. And keep in mind, and Joe had to remind me, that the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's essentially execution is next month.
Yeah.
So let's see if there's going to be anything in May. I'm sure there will be, but let's see what people will say in terms of that whole thing and where we are now and the lack of movement we have against protecting Black people, especially from the police.
Yep.
Let's see if any of that will be mentioned, or at least it'll be more in the very superficial way that mainstream media will do that. Their damnedest to kind of make their talking points about. Let's go back in. At Stopano, I guess.
Pagano? Yeah.
Western Pagano, I guess.
Yep.
If Kamala loses, it's going to be so weird to watch liberals start protesting the same things they're defending now. And then, come on. And then at Push Stems Left, right on cue. So this was their thing. And a lot of people noted, they were like, hands off NATO. We don't like NATO here. They need to be gone as well.
Yeah.
So, so obviously, like, this was just kind of, to me, just kind of superfluous and just kind of...
And it's this Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security that are really crumbs at best these days.
Right.
They won't support anything past that, God forbid. And they use it as voting fucking blackmail every 4 years. And neither party ever goes, like, they never get rid of it either. So...
Right. We talked about this, I think you and I definitely know I did with Indy, like, over the weekend. Like, the sad thing about these protests, it wasn't initially meant to be like this. It was mostly meant to be about Gaza.
Yeah. Well, that's what I had seen.
But then...
Sam Husseini said there's like 2 protests coming and whatnot. So,
right. So, but then... the powers that be and all these organizations, these liberal organizations, essentially hijacked it to make it be about Trump and Musk and all these other. And again, it's not to say Medicare is not important. It's not to say a lot of the issues that people were fighting for.
The genocide we're complicit in, I feel like it's at least first billing,
Right.
So, which it wasn't.
Or if you're going to talk, about Medicare, or you're going to talk about anything of health, why not Medicare for all?
Yeah.
Like, what happened with that? So as far as I know, that wasn't even mentioned. So if you're going to talk about anything, did they talk anything about for Black people reparations? Did they talk about anything regarding safety from the police? Remember. That's kind of why I didn't go, because it would have brought up like a trigger warnings for me. Because being at the George Floyd protests, I heard a lot of people say, a lot of Black people were saying we had to vote for Biden because he was basically the only one that could solve the police brutality thing. And what did Biden say within the first few days? Or not even, I don't even think he was even sworn in yet. He was basically like, I ain't doing shit for Black people. And I'm paraphrasing. I don't need to do anything. I'm done. I have to do anything. So that was not even before he was sworn in. So I didn't hear any those kind of talks at all based on what I saw online. But I didn't want to end with this. This is a new clip that I think you might not have seen, but I changed that at the last minute. So this is actually trying to remember his name. No, the guy White. Michael Wright, yeah. So he is the leader of the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Okay.
So he did an interview, I believe, back in 2020. So this was post George Floyd, during the pandemic. Obviously, Wall Street, the whole thing was during the Obama era.
Yep.
So he was asked about protests and why essentially they've become performative and why they don't work now in this modern age. So short clip, but I think what he says is very interesting. And I think this is kind of something that I wish I could have said a little more eloquently, like in the past. But I think he nails down something that I think is very important regarding protests today. So you don't mind playing the clip.
We use these clips for educational purposes, which is within our rights as fair use. Just in case, you know?
As you've studied history, and I know this is something you love, is just looking at historical movements, trying to understand how you create change. I mean, what are the ways change happens in your estimation now, if it's not taking to the streets?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the core messages that I'm trying to get across is I'm not saying don't protest. I think what I'm trying to say is we need to reconceive what protest is. Protest, if you look at it historically, what it is it's really a behavior that's culturally defined. People have protested differently throughout human history. I mean, during the American Revolution, they tarred and feathered people or pulled down their houses, or during the Civil Rights era, we marched. And I think now we've reached a point where the current repertoire of our tactics, they're broken. And the reason why they're broken, if you kind of look at why they're broken, is because the story underlying why we protest is false. And that basic story has something to do with that it's kind of a mystical, magical thinking. It has something to do with if you can get large numbers of people in the streets, they manifest some sort of greater power over their democracy, which makes perfect sense in a certain way, because if you can get so many people into the streets saying something, of course their leaders should have to listen to them, but it's not true. It's really not true. So we have to think about, well, how do the people manifest a greater power over their governments? And that gets into these questions of sovereignty, it gets into these other issues. And I think that that's really the direction we need to go, is that we can no longer rely on the fact that we are able to get millions of people into the streets. We act as activists as if that's extremely difficult, but recent years have shown us, since Occupy Wall Street, it's actually very easy for us now. We can get women to march, scientists to march, we can get Black Lives Matter to march. We have to kind of go differently, a little bit deeper. I think the path forward is very hard, but I think that it's going to be fundamentally more rewarding.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we've kind of mentioned that in a different way on this show. Like, the way we protest now shouldn't be the same as what our parents and grandparents were doing in the 60s.
Yeah.
Like, it's old. And yeah, it's like back then, it was going to be a lot harder to gather like millions of people at National Mall. Like, think of MLK's I Had a Dream streets. I'm sure that was very difficult back then. But with social media, you can get people in the streets within seconds. So it's not, that in of itself is easy. What is hard is to kind of, and I say this all the time, is to kind of cultivate that anger and discontent into actionable steps that make politicians scared.
Well, Occupy Wall Street,
and that was why I pulled itself,
put themselves in the faces of the money holders, and made their lot, they actually were afraid of these people indefinitely in their area, right? Like, essentially a large sit-in, but it was at least like the money holders then went to Senate and Congress and said, hey, you need to do something about this. Mainly pepper spray these people and, but I digress when they continued to be there.
Right.
But who broke that up? What happened?
Right.
I remember there was an Obama, I do believe. But this is, we've talked about how monetarily you can protest with divesting and sanctioning and boycotting, but all those things are barely,
Right. But here's the thing. But this is why, in a way, George Floyd was kind of significant, because I don't remember politicians coming out in the same way that Nancy and Ilhan Omar and like all these other politicians did to kind of speak to the people back then. Now, granted, we were in the middle of a pandemic, so like people were wearing masks and safety and all that kind of stuff. And at that point, people didn't give a fuck. Like, so I understand that, but I wish I took a picture. I saw Kamala Harris in the, within the crowds one day to take a photo op just to show that she was there, and left. So didn't address the people, did not talk to anybody. She just took her picture and left. So, but they were scared, scared enough that when the NBA were threatening to strike, they brought Obama in to talk to the NBA players to essentially have them not strike. So That's why I go back to that time and being like, that was an opportunity that we failed, because we had politicians literally at that point by the balls, and we could have demanded anything that we wanted to, but we squandered it because certain people thought if we just voted our way out of it by having Biden instead of Trump, then things would be a lot better. But as you saw, and and as we've seen from Biden, within the last.
What happened? Care Bear? Care Bear, don't freeze on us. Don't do that. Why you do that? There you go. You're back.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So I'll repeat what I was saying. So, we had Biden for the last few years, and people were saying 5 years ago that we needed to vote our way out of the problem, and during protests at that, and nothing amounted to that. And now we have Trump again, and now we're doing this recyclical thing of, okay, we need to protest again, and watch it within the next couple of years. Oh, we have to vote for the Democratic nominee and whatever, and just all this over and over again when we're not realizing. And look, I'm saying this as a person who loves a protest. Anyone who knows me knows I love to fuck shit up. But I think now we have to consider what is the right way to protest, if we should at all, in this environment where politicians don't give a fuck. Politicians will join in.
Yep.
So
it's great publicity.
We need to get them right. We need to get them to a point where they cannot show their face. So I don't have the answers tonight. I don't think you guys have the answers tonight. But I think that's something we need to talk about moving forward. What does protesting / organizing look like in 2025 and beyond? That is beyond the I was there thing. I was there to protest against Trump, but then you went home and went back to your normal life. That's not going to do anything.
Mm-mm.
That certainly has not been the thing to do. And I think we need to speak some truth into that, to kind of say, and I hate saying it. Actually, no, I don't. That we can't protest in the same way anymore and think that we're going to get the result, because as Micah said, it's just kind of like a fairy tale, in believing that if enough people got out there, look, Gaza should have been a clear indication for a lot of us, they ain't doing shit with that either. So that should tell you they don't care. So long of it is, we need to do something different. And I would love to be a part of the conversation as to what that could be. But what we're doing and what this was over the past weekend ain't it. Thousands of people, hundreds of cities aside. And I'm saying that even, honestly, for the Medicare for All march that I did a few years ago, even then. But I didn't know any better back then. So I learned, I grow, and I want to do something else.
Well,
any last thoughts before we
I have something else. There is one thing we could try. We haven't tried it in a while.
GUILLOTINE. Yeah, what might seem barbaric is the last resort to me.
Yeah, GUILLOTINE. What? Sorry. I would never recommend such outlandish things. I wouldn't do it. What? You ever wonder why we're demonetized, Gabriel? Do you ever wonder? Couldn't have been anything like that.
Because we talk, hopefully, I mind real shit. So, and yeah. So, but again, let us know in the comments or in the chat. And again, we're not looking for answers, but do you agree with what I said? Do we need something different as far as how we get the things that we want via collective action? What should that look like, or what should we do now in this day and age? I definitely think social media should be a part of it for sure, but not to what we have seen over the last decade, especially. Just getting people in the streets to rant and rave for a couple of hours and then go home. We can't afford to keep doing that if that's not working. So let us know in the chat what you think and what you believe might be the best things that we should be doing to move forward. You can scan the QR code that you see on your screen that Reef will go back to, or you can go to the Ko-fi link at the bottom of your screen if you want to donate to the network. If you're in the YouTube chat, you can type in !, donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up if you want to donate there as well. You can also go to our Substack, Cash App, and PayPal links in the description if you want to donate that way too. And like we always say, we understand that money is tight for you, a lot of you. So if you want to support us, don't forget to like and subscribe and share our content to help us fight this suppression on YouTube. And make sure you leave a comment based on what we've talked about in this segment once we clip it up. And thank you for watching.
Yay. Cool. To the chats, Boy Wonder.
I think there were a lot, or I expect a lot.
I'll let you go through some of them while I go to the little pundits room. There you go. No, this one. Yay, big Care Bear. Cool.
Okay. So I'm going in YouTube. I don't have the means to show them on the screen. Maybe one day I will. So Nally in the chat said to Kate in chat, hope it's okay if I read it. I used to think protests mattered as well. The thing is, why are you protesting? Do you even begin to grasp how corrupt our government is? Protesting one party doesn't cut it. I do agree. Chris H in YouTube chat, a lot of FBA people were saying that they don't want to go to the protest. Yeah, I was seeing that too. That's why I kind of got cut off from it, because I am not, a lot of you know, I'm not a fan of the ADOS/FBA community. Now, granted, I think they were correct in Black people not necessarily attending, especially if our issues were not going to be addressed in a way that are meaningful. That being said, I don't trust a lot of their tactics and their antics as to why they were saying for Black people not to show up. Because as I read earlier, there were a lot of influencers saying don't show up because we did our job in voting for Kamala Harris, whoever did. And we didn't get it. We got Trump instead. So yeah, I was seeing a lot of that online as well. So let's see. It's so Bad Cookies. It sounds like she's learning the gimmick of the Democratic Party. I'm not sure who you were talking about, Cookies. So if you can let us know in the chat, depending on who it is, I think you're right. Let's see. Felt this a lot more, but so Chris H in YouTube, I could be wrong, but I feel like the George Floyd protests have been forgotten. The police response was insane. I don't think people have forgotten them.
Yeah, we remember
again,
at least.
The 50th anniversary will be next month. People will be talking about it, but yeah, I think that was almost the point of Biden coming into power, was to squash a lot of those conversations so that people would kind of go to sleep and not talk about it as much. And they succeeded. So, also Chris in chat, people protesting abortion rights after the last midterms were getting messed up by the cops too. Yep. And And again, I heard a lot of stuff of like, oh, Republicans did this and did this. But I didn't hear a lot of people calling out the Democrats of why didn't they codify Roe v. Wade when they had decades to do so. I didn't see much of that, especially from people who had access to those Democratic politicians. And I'm not going to name names, but there were a few that had like standing within several feet of senators, Democratic senators, and did not call them out for their inaction.
Neil Nostrum says general strike, I think that works better than protest, but does the general strike work? Kind of like a unicorn. If there was one, if there was one. So, what do you got?
Desert Mantis, the march was probably sponsored by the FBI. Probably not
possibly
the mark. All one, same. YouTube, I was repelled by Hands Off NATO.
Indy also, Hands Off NATO, exclamation points.
Right. Let's see.
Natalie Williams, Shanda showed a tank rolling up on a guy in Sequoia, Washington. Talk about overkill. One dude versus 10 cops in a tank. They were so proud to roll it out and publicize the fact. So, yep.
All one saying, did the bonus march work? I don't know how many people. What's that? Let us know.
Sure
I have
the bonus march.
No idea what that is.
Indy, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Joe Biden.
Right.
So
bad cookies. Occupy Wall Street was really cool until Obama sent in the popo.
Yep. Funny how that works.
Yeah, Desert Mantis. The college protests last year triggered fear.
I think they did.
Yes.
Oh, they did.
Yes.
They sent the cops right in there. So
yes,
I'm with them on that. They're deporting people right now because of it. So
right.
But
bad cookies. If I had solutions, I would have implemented them already. If I had solutions, the cops would have put me in jail. Yep.
Yep. Desert Mantis.
There's no organization behind the protest, a real organization, and not just an aggregation of people. That I totally agree.
Yep.
Although there was something, but Natalie, Corey is a corrupt corporate critter. Yep.
Mantis, we need to get Cory Booker involved.
Kate also said, my mother-in-law wrote the book White Liberals in Transition. She showed in her thesis that Caucasian liberals do more harm when attempting to advocate for minority communities. Absolutely.
Yep.
They can, I will say it, they can truly ally, but that should be led by those populations and communities involved. They should be leading the charge. If you want to support them on the side, go off. But give them the voice and the means to do the work if you're going to ally in that way.
NATO equals North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, says KYE. So you read the thing about the book. I think we're caught up.
Yep.
We did it.
Yep. So yeah, cool. You guys had a lot to say. I figured you would, but so thank you for your comments. So I really appreciate it.
All right. To our last story. Let me check Rumble real quick before we do that. Birdhouse Blue says pop-up protest. I still am left scratching my head. Still using the no justice, no peace. Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I'm with you. Cool. Yeah. Let's get to this. So, we've debunked plenty of lies about October 7th on this channel before, particularly the 40 beheaded babies hoax and others. You know, we've talked about the Hannibal Directive and the implications there, but you recognize this guy, Care Bear? Well, you're gonna. So That is, we'll get to his name in just a second, but he is one of the key 7th October mass rapes witness, denounced as a liar by Israeli reporters. So this is from Ali Abaniba over at the Electronic Intifada, right? And we're going to talk about Rami Davedian. Can you just go with David? Why is it got to be weird? Why you got to put Davidian? Davidian. Just quit that. Y'all got to get your names better over there. But an Israeli man who claimed to have heroically rescued hundreds of people from Hamas on the 7th of October has been exposed as an outright liar who made up stories from beginning to end. Funny how that works with them. The debunking of Rami Davedian's fabrications by a high-profile mainstream Israeli journalist is highly significant, but it comes a year after the Electronic Intifada concluded from its own investigations that Davedian's self-aggrandizing accounts were replete with inconsistencies, impossibilities, and lies. So Davedian, who was a star witness in Sheryl Sandberg's 7th October atrocity propaganda film Screams Before Silence, also claimed to have seen dozens of dead victims of alleged rapes on that day, some with objects inserted into their genitals. Raviv Drucker, a journalist with Israel's Channel 13, revealed that his network was set to air an expose of Davedian's lies in the coming days. The broadcast was, however, canceled after a promo trailing the report caused public backlash. So, we're going to, today in the early afternoon, the CEO of Channel 13, Elmiano Kalesmukzik, called and said that he decided not to broadcast a segment on Rami Davedian that was scheduled to be broadcast on Sunday. Drucker revealed Friday in a post on Twitter, "This is the first time that we spoke on the topic." Drucker said, "I told him that it would be a grave error." So we're going to listen to Ali Abunima here in a second from the EI, Indie Media Award honoree, as well as the EI itself. So we're going to listen to a bit of this, and they're going to explain more. Again, viewer discretion advised just because of discussion of sexual violence, but not much you haven't heard on this channel before, but we'll play.
This is a clip of a man called Rami Davedian, who claims to have single-handedly rescued hundreds of people from that supernova rave on October 7th.
כל ראיתי בחורות קשורות עם הידיים גופות. מישהו רצח אותם, אנס אותם, תעלל בהם, פה בעצים האלה. הרגליים שלהם היו פתוחות. מי שרואה זה יודע שהתעללו בבנות. מישהו הפשיט אותם, מישהו אנס אותם. וחידרו לעברים הפנימיים שלהם כל מיני דברים, כמו קרשים, כמו ברזלים. מעל 30 בנות נרצחו ונאנסו פה. כי צריך לסגור את הרגליים שלהם, לחסות את הגופות שלהם. שאף אחד לא יראה מה שאני ראיתי, אף אחד. אף אחד לא יכול לראות דברים כאלה.
It's okay. I don't even know what to say about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, just to summarize for those who are listening and couldn't read the subtitles. So Rami Davedian, they're standing in the forest where this supernova rave took place, and he claims that he saw women tied to trees who had been raped, who had been burned, who had had objects like iron rods and wooden boards inserted into their private parts. And then he says that I mean, no one else was around, according to him. It was just him. And then he says what he did is that if their legs, again, I'm sorry about how graphic this is, but if their legs were spread, he closed their legs, he covered everything up, and he said, so no one else could see. No one else could see. So what's interesting about that is if we are to believe what he's saying, then he is admitting that he actually tampered with a major crime scene in order to destroy the evidence of the things he says he saw so that no one else could ever see them. And that turns out to be very convenient indeed, because Rami Davedian is a huge liar.
I know you have more to say about him, Rami Davidian, and some of these other characters that we just saw in that in those clips. But let's start with those claims themselves. Why do you think they are not credible?
Right. First, let's go back to that UN report again by Pramila Patten, the UN Secretary General's Special Representative on Sexual Violence and Armed Conflict. And here's what it says about the claims about objects being inserted into people's private parts. This is paragraph 65 of the report, which actually rejects a number of the most prominent Israeli atrocity claims about October 7th. But look at that last sentence. It says, quote, allegations of objects found inserted in female genital organs also could not be verified by the mission team due in large part to the limited availability and low quality of imagery. And then this is paragraph 47 of the same UN report, which addresses the claims about the positions in which bodies were allegedly observed. It points to, quote, erroneous interpretations of the state of bodies by some volunteer first responders without relevant qualifications and expertise. Some examples include mistaking post-mortem pugilistic posturing, a boxer-like body posture with flexed elbows, clenched fists, spread legs, and flexed knees due to burn damage as indicative of sexual violence, misinterpreting anal dilation due to post-mortem changes as indicative of anal penetration, and mischaracterizing grazing gunshot wounds to genitalia as targeted genital mutilation using knives. End quote.
Any questions? Not necessarily. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly upset at the suppression of his team's work. Let's do this and then this and this. Drucker went on to describe how meticulously the report was prepared and to characterize what it reveals about Davidian's claims. These are not slight exaggerations, mildly inflating the number of those rescued. Absolutely not, Drucker wrote. These are stories made up from beginning to end, hair-raising stories that never, ever occurred. Drucker notes that Davidian's claims of rescuing Israelis were quoted in a reputable film, in newspapers across the world, and in an important book. The EI had already exposed Davidian's lies almost a year ago when it debunked Screams Before Silence, likely the reputable film to which Drucker refers. The Sandbag film was promoted as a documentary film on the sexual violence committed by Hamas, but this writer exposed it as a total fraud on the EI livestream for the 1st of May. The EI also concluded from inconsistencies in his accounts that Davidian had fabricated a superhero-like account of rescuing an Israeli woman tied to a tree by Hamas. You can watch the segments specific to Davidian's in the video at the top of this page. Guess what? We're going to do so. So here is that bit of footage. Yay. Shout out to the great work from the EI.
Also said you wanted to talk more about Rami Davidian, the man we saw just a few minutes ago who claimed to see women tied to trees and various objects inserted into them.
Yes. Interestingly, Rami Davidian has already told his story, or rather stories, since the versions seem to change constantly. And here he is, for example, featured on a website called Humans of Tel Aviv, giving his account of October 7th. He is identified not as a first responder like in the Sandberg film, but as a farmer from Moshav Patish, a Zionist colonial settlement a few miles east of the boundary with Gaza. In that account, Davidian claims that he helped rescue hundreds of people from the supernova rave, including one young woman in particular. And this is what he's quoted as saying. I got a location from Rotem, one of the girls who escaped the party, and she texted me that she was hiding behind a tree. I drove to her location, honking my car so she could hear me approaching her. When I got to her location, I saw she was surrounded by 5 terrorists. I didn't flinch and shouted at them in Arabic, Ahlan, my name is Abu Rami. I'm Muslim, and it's better that you give the girl to me and escape from here as fast as you can because the whole area is full of armed security forces. I wasn't afraid. It was pure instincts. Luckily, they thought I was a Bedouin, and because they were already on the run, they gave me the girl to me and ran off. End quote. Now, I found that Davidian has told this story, this version of the rescue, countless times in interviews. But he also gave his account in a video posted on the YouTube channel of the World Mizrahi Organization in December. It's a 5-minute video, but we're just going to watch a short clip where he tells the tale of his heroic rescue of that woman.
קלטתי מספר בנות, הם אמרו לי שחברה שלהם תקועה תחת איזה שעובדתי באיזשהו מקום, ולא היה קליטה, קשה מאוד להגיע אליה. והיא בוכה, מתחננת, שאני אציל.
She cried, begging me to save her. Then I said, fine, I'll start honking with the car. The ladder gets, you can direct me. I started running. I saw her with 5 or 6 men. I looked to the sides. I saw weapons. Then I realized they were terrorists. I don't know where. I found a pipeline of a sprinkler. Only Farmer knows what that is. I put her in the car, brought her to my house, and once again I returned to the area. It's a miracle that this woman was saved in your merit. I don't want that merit. I don't ever want that merit.
As you can see there, Rami Davidian is really good at turning on the waterworks in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to read the English subtitles again for those who are listening rather than watching. He says, "In one case, I rescued several girls. They told me their friend was stuck in a wadi in the middle of nowhere. There was no cell phone reception. It was very difficult to reach her. And she cried, begging me to save her. Then I said, fine, I'll start honking with the car. And the louder it gets, you direct me. Yes, yes, yes. I managed to reach her. I started running. I saw her with 5 or 6 men. I looked to the sides. I saw weapons. Then I realized they were terrorists. I don't know where I got the strength from. I found a pipe of a sprinkler. Only a farmer knows what that is. I managed to knock them to the ground. I put her in the car, brought her to my house, and once again returned to the area. It's a miracle that this woman was saved. I don't want that merit. I don't ever want that merit. I didn't do it for the merit." End quote. So as you can see there, what you immediately notice there is that these accounts are very different. In the first one, he somehow scares off the 5 armed terrorists who've supposedly come to kill everyone in sight just by scolding them in Arabic. He doesn't say anything about fighting them off with a pipe. He just managed to either charm them or scare them or convince them by pretending to be a Muslim. He is in fact Jewish, but he says he pretended to be a Muslim. In the second story, he heroically knocks 5 armed terrorists, as he calls them, to the ground with nothing but a piece of pipe.
Right.
I mean, what do you think? How credible is that?
We've watched a lot of movies.
Right. This is like a script from a superhero movie.
Yeah.
So he's clearly not a very credible witness. And it's also notable that in the vast majority of his interviews that I saw, Davidian makes no claims whatsoever about seeing any signs of sexual violence. The earliest instance I could find of Davidian claiming to have seen anything related to sexual violence, the kind of things he describes to Sheryl Sandberg, date from early February, 4 months after October 7th, in a report from the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel, an organization that has played a key role in trying to launder the mass rape hoax. And the last thing I'll say about Rami Davidian is that even if he can't keep his stories straight, he does seem to be enjoying the limelight. He's become a sort of a minor celebrity in Israel, doing speaking events like this one in April, where for the price of 60 shekels, that's about $15, you can go and listen to him tell his tales of heroism. And he's even gone on a speaking tour of Italy recently.
Right, except he doesn't want any merit. As he says.
No, a very, very modest character.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So nice of him to get all those accolades, though, you know? I do believe you also saw him in those places in New York that talked about, the October 7th remembrance things, whatever those were. He showed up to a few of those. But yeah, I mean, just a liar of the first degree. So, ever since the 7th of October, according to Channel 13's Drucker, Davidian has turned his stories into an industry, taking part in paid lecture tours in Israel and abroad, as well as fundraising campaigns. In perhaps hundreds of interviews, Drucker wrote, Davidian repeats over and over again stories that simply never happened. Davidian's debunked claims are also cited in a report by an all-party group of British lawmakers. The 7th October Parliamentary Commission report purports to meticulously document the grisly fates of the 1,182 people killed by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The parliamentary report cites Davidian's stories as told to Sandberg as part of its evidence, giving his lies a veneer of official credibility. To date, there is not a single positively identified victim, living or dead, of the alleged mass rapes on the 7th of October. As the EI has reported, since the early weeks of the genocide in Gaza, Israel's mass rape narrative is atrocity propaganda. It is rooted in racist stereotypes of colonized and subjected peoples, similar to the routinely fabricated accusations of the rape of white women used for decades to justify the lynchings of black men across the United States. Were they wrong?
Anyone?
The handful of other eyewitnesses to the 7th of October rapes or crime scenes gave accounts that collapsed completely under scrutiny, and there was a major scandal after the New York Times published a notorious December 2023 article which contained multiple debunked claims of rape. Nor is Davidian the first grifter allegedly seeking money and fame from the mass rape hoax, with Drucker's exposure of Davidian's lies only the latest, about 7th of October, to be debunked. There is no excuse for Western media and politicians to keep parroting propaganda whose only purpose is to incite or attempt to justify Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people. So wait.
Except they do.
Wait, this just in. I'm getting reports of Davidian's. He's telling me he wants to tell people why he's done this. Oh, that makes sense. Got it. He's a liar. That makes perfect sense. Closing thoughts? Anything you got?
Rewarding. I don't even want to say bad behavior because bad just makes it sound like a child. But
yeah, it's an understatement. You know?
No, it's such an understatement. But this man is disgusting in the truest sense of the word. Like, yeah, I remember seeing those interviews. He and all looked like a demon, like in all. So it's just kind of like the idea that, and I would say allegedly, but no, but he prided himself on what he did, and now the thing is, I haven't seen him get major play here.
Yeah,
probably a good thing. But,
right.
But you know, and I think that there's a reason why. It's because it's so obvious. Like, he's taking pride in the crimes that he has committed, and he's essentially getting away with it. Like,
yeah,
I don't think anyone wants that on their conscience. Anyone that has any morals.
What's the Mossad motto? Lying. By way in a way of warfare, you know, this comes after, like, you know, we saw what was the recent Oscar film, No Other Land. Right after that, you know, suddenly there's an Oscar push for this, you know, Jewish women in Israel being, you know, like harassed in way, you know, it's the same lies that are said here, I'm sure. So. But yeah, I mean, it's just information warfare, but part of our duty is to push back on that and give you guys the truth, you know? So that's the way that goes.
You better say free Palestine.
And saying free Palestine, turns out, gets you demonetized from YouTube and Google's algorithm. So if you would like to support us outside of that system, you can scan that QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork. If you would like to, links are in the description below, as well as other ways to support us monetarily are also there if you so wish. But we get it, times are tough. Like and subscribe. Share the video. Send this to your friends who think that that is still real. Leave a comment. Let us know what other lies we're missing. And, you know, thanks for watching. Cool. We did it. Yay. We did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. We made it. We did it. Yay.
Tale as old as time.
What?
Yeah.
If I didn't laugh, I'd cry. But anything in chat you wanted to check in on?
Yeah, so a couple. There you go, back up to it. All one same. Oh wait, actually, there's two. All one same. I think this is in regards to our last segment. On July 28th, 1942, the U.S. government attacked World War I veterans with tanks, bayonets, and tear gas under the leadership of textbook heroes Douglas MacArthur, George Patton, and Dwight D. Eisenhower. The World War I vets were part of a bonus army who came to Washington, D.C. to make a demand for their promised wartime bonuses. Okay, so that's what that was. I think there was... Is there more?
Yeah, there was a couple I saw.
No, I think that was it.
There was.
No, I thought there was more in relation to that, but
yeah. KYE says he thinks he's John Wickstein. John Wickbergstein. Indy, that is anti-Semitic. How dare you, sir? But that man suffered so much witnessing such atrocities. He was so strong and brave. It takes so much will of strength to do all that. That poor guy. God. I made the whole thing up, says Rami Davidian. Holy shit. Yep. Dope. Well, Indy sent you stuff, correct? For tomorrow?
Yeah, I sent it. I put in a thing a while ago, so you might have to refresh.
Okay. I can do that. To the thing. Hold on.
So it's kind of a slow week, I think, coming up. So, so while Reef gets that ready, so yeah, I think we figured out a thank you system that wouldn't be too hard for you. So, but I think we need to. So I think we definitely need to talk about like what would it take for people if they want their own featured sound.
Yep.
If they give money, I think we need to kind of put some rules on that, just so like, you know, so
yeah, just
so
something I can play when I see him in chat. You know, give him a little shout out.
I feel like they have to give like a certain amount in order to get to that point. And then like we can talk about it offline and then we can let you all know. But I think that's actually a great idea. And that's easy for you to kind of do. So
cool.
But anyway, so as I said, it's gonna be kind of a weird, not weird week, but we're gonna have a few people traveling, so we'll keep up with the content, but there won't be as much stuff going on around here, at least for next week. But so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday through Thursday, we have simulcast of AM Wake Up at 10. All these times are at Eastern Daylight Time, by the way, just in case for those of you who are new. On Friday at 10 will be a simulcast of the Independent Review. Indy might be in chat of AM Wake Up. He might actually pop in.
He also said tomorrow night.
Definitely check that out if you're in that. If you at work where you're able to listen, or if you're not, you can possibly see Indy, or maybe you just look, check him out in the chat on AM Wake Up. Tomorrow night, big announcement. Thanks, Indy, for a reminder. American Tradition is going to move to a new night. It's going to move
American Tradition.
It's going to move to Thursday. So before it was every other Tuesday, now it's going to be every other Thursday, starting tomorrow night at 10 Eastern. So, of course, that would be, led by Indy and Jesse. So they're excited. I think it'll just be easier for Jesse to do Thursday nights. And then, so let us know. We'll see if that works. Let us know. Let them know if you prefer Thursday night. Might be a way to kind of, if you're pre-gaming or whatever, it might be a way to kind of pregame before you head out. Thursday night, if you do that. So Indy's saying Saturday and Sunday we'll have a 2-night How Do We Miss That Extravaganza clip show.
Yeah.
Because Indy is going out of town. So there will not be a live of How Do We Miss That. So it'll also give you a break a little bit.
Yep.
Angel in the afternoon going back. Well, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, India saying no, wake up Monday or Tuesday. I'm kind of going into like normally for upcoming next week.
Yeah.
So because I know the thing is kind of weird.
Speaking of next week,
but thanks for the reminder, Indy.
Cam, who was it? Hold on, I'll find it. Kamishwari Kate says, ask Fee for a good clip of Bella Ciao. Sunday we should be pre-recording with Fee for a show Wednesday, so that's Colin's traveling, so we got to find a replacement, and we're gonna pre-record so we don't have to. With Fiorella Isabel, that should be fun. Tune in for that.
Yeah. Right. So that'll be next week. So we won't be live, but we will have content at that time. So we'll confirm with Fee, but I think it's fairly certain she will. So we'll pre-record and have that up for next week. For next week's show. Angel will be on Angel in the afternoon at 7 Friday night, followed by American Kitchen Replay, I guess, up Thursday night now. And then, actually, if you go back, gets Wrestling Talk possibly on Sunday. Angel will let you all know if you follow him on Twitter or follow Get Any News on Twitter. We'll update you on that.
Yep.
And I think that's it. Because the rest of the stuff were from this week. So beginning of the week.
Yep. So, well, I think that's just about it. Andy did a one-on-one with Chris Legion. People should go check out. Otherwise, same old shit, different week. But,
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah. All right, kids. Labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye, have a great time.